Are those the hips you want, but those are the ones you have? And maybe you're struggling with gluteal and hip pain that just won't quit. Are you getting the same old ache after hours of sitting, walking, cycling, or lifting at the gym? Maybe you've tried it all. Stretching, massage, yoga poses, foam rolling, and the pain just keeps coming back on schedule every single time. In this video series, we will talk about the hip. We'll cover how to make your hip joint function better. I will show you how to fortify the deepest hip muscles, expand the range of motion in the hip, and increase control over the joint. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Anna. I'm a certified Pilates and mobility coach and osteopathy trainee. On this channel, I cover strategies to maintain healthy joints, improve mobility and strength, aiming for a resilient body inside out. So guys, in this episode, I'll be covering hip rotation, which is the primary movement of the hip. Let's take a look at the anatomy. Hip joint is a ball and socket joint, which is fantastically designed for mobility and stability. We've got a ball-shaped end of the thigh bone, so-called femur bone, that sits nicely in the acetabulum, which is a socket formed by your pelvic bones. Thanks to the cartilage covering the head of the femur and the inside of the socket as well, we've got a nice smooth gliding happening between the two bones. When it comes to mobility, though, the muscles will not be the main restrictors of the movement. Those will be the ligaments. Ligaments are made of less elastic collagen and allow our joint to stay more resilient and provide stability. The ligaments that surround the joint form so-called hip capsule. They are very thick and strong and are arranged in a spiral-like fashion. And this arrangement allows the thigh bone to rotate inside or within that hip socket. The deepest hip muscles blend into the capsule and directly affect how much the hip can move. Those are the structures we are trying to influence when thinking of improving mobility. So now that you know the structure, let's move on to the implementation. So start in 90-90 position. Left thigh externally rotated, right leg internally rotated. You may want to slide little cushions below the knee or foot, or even sit up on a cushion if you're feeling pinching in the right hip. Now we'll be leaning over the left leg, so breastbone towards the left knee, and lean as far as you can. We are looking for a deep stretch in the left buttock, left hip. So I'm trying to get as deep as I can because again, I'm trying to influence the capsule of the hip. This is the variation for that position. So if you're really lacking rotation and flexibility around the hip, you can sit up. You can do it on the bench. You can do it on the sofa. You can also slide a block below your left butt cheek. Now hold this stretch with me. Okay, I'm gonna hold this for quite a while. So join me. Notice how I'm rotating my upper body slightly to the left. This will also take my pelvis slightly to the right, creating a little bit more rotation in the hip. So now we're transitioning from stage 1 where we're working on flexibility. We are heading into mobility. Now your setup is very important. Notice how I drop on the left forearm. You don't want to sink to the ground, so stabilize your left scapula. And it would be a good idea to potentially put a log below the forearm or a little cushion. Okay, we will be rotating left thigh and trying to lift the left foot off the floor. So we are not moving the knee or foot. We're trying to rotate left hip joint. It's going to be a little lift, okay? If it lifts a lot, if it doesn't lift at all, drop down even lower onto your forearm, maybe even lie down. However, if it lifts quite a lot, inch, 2 or 3 or more, come up a little bit higher. Come up on the block or 2 blocks. You may feel your inner thighs a little bit. And hip flexors too. Let's complete another 10 lifts. And little tip in terms of setup and movement, I'm trying to keep my knee at 90-degree angle. So I put that block in there. So I'm making sure that I'm not using my hamstrings to flex the knee, to bend the knee, rather keeping knee at the same angle throughout. Guys, here 20 to 25 reps, and we are moving on. Leave the left leg as it is. Rotate your upper body and your pelvis slightly to the right. Okay, so now your breastbone will be facing your right knee. Your right knee. So we're now focusing on internal rotation of your right hip. Right butt cheek may lift off the ground. That's okay. But just think of the direction of the thigh bone. Thigh bone rotates towards your left leg and the pelvis rotates towards the right side. So I'm showing you my fingers where you're going. And we are now starting the countdown, holding internal rotation. So again, we're just trying to create a bit of tension, ligaments for the internal rotators of the hip. And I'm just here adding a block for proprioceptive reasons on top of my right foot. It will be a good idea to use something a little bit heavier, like a book. You know, you can grab a book with hardcover or like a cork block so you can actually feel the weight of that block on your foot. So now we're moving to stage 2, where after working on flexibility, we are moving on to isometrics, so trying to develop control over the joint. So imagine 2 scales, one below the foot to one below the knee. I'm referring to the right side, and we'll be sort of switching which direction we're going. So now 10% of your strength, you will be driving your right foot down into the ground. Imagine like you're trying to externally rotate, kick through the ground, and we're going to hold 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and then stop. Okay, relax. Now we're trying to shift the focus towards the knee. So now you'll be gently pressing knee down, trying to lift the right foot off the floor. So not moving the pelvis, okay? Your right sit bone stays close to the ground. And we're trying to lift. It won't move though, guys. You won't see anything there, okay? It's all about contraction of that anterior fibers of the glute medius, which again blends into the capsule. So we're trying to lift 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then soften, relax. Okay, now relax and we switch. Push your foot down. And then relax, relax, and we will change. So now knee pressing, foot lifting, and again 10-15% of your max strength. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then relax the foot again. Okay, there will be a third round where we're ramping. Okay, push your foot down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Switch. Knee down. Foot up, pushing into that book or block, whatever you've got. And again, 15-20% of max strength. And relax. We were doing isometrics to expand range of motion a little bit, start creating a little bit more control. Now we are moving to lift-offs, and this is for actually simply training or bulletproofing the range of motions you already have. Okay, so you will need to get out of the internal rotation, fold again slightly or as far as you need to over the left leg, so you're able to lift your right foot off the floor. So we rotating internally. Keep in mind that angle in the knee, it should stay at 90 degrees. So we are not pulling the heel to the sit bone. We are rotating the thigh bone. You can drop as much as needed. You want to see an inch of space, right? An inch, a bit of a lift off the ground. If you're lifting pretty far and you feel good and you're feeling control, come up a little bit higher. Okay, hands pressing down. And again, aim for 20 to 25 lifts. And watch out for compensations. You see what I'm doing here? Do not do that. We're trying not to move the lumbar spine. So you have to always take a deep breath in, brace your midsection, engage the side abs so your pelvis and trunk do not move. So this is isolated movement from your hip. This is a very common mistake though, okay? So it takes a bit of time and getting used to. And guys, count your reps, okay? Maybe another 10 reps here. And then if you feel you've got the range, you've got this, come up and sit up a little bit straighter, a little bit taller. Okay, and again, watch out for that lower back. I am pointing to the area where you may feel it, okay? Anterior fibers of your glute medius. Also, your right hip is abducted, right? So you may feel a bit of cramping around that outside of the right hip. I like to finish my last rep with a longer hold, maybe count down 5 to 8 seconds, and then relax. Okay, guys, so we covered the whole 90-90 towards the left. Relax your hip, shake it off. We will be covering now the other side. I will just give you very quick tips so you can actually change it and do it in real time. And just as we discussed before, you need to set yourself up in the right position. Bending the knee fully, it's not the position we're aiming for, okay? Or you want close to 90 degrees to the front knee. And maybe sit up on the block like I've done. If you're really restricted in this hip, maybe give yourself a little more height below the hip and below the right knee. Progression to pigeon. So full sort of square hips to the floor and leaning forwards over the right leg. I'm sitting here on the block just because I feel like I'm getting a little bit more rotation in my hip. So sensing the stretch and being in the right position for your own hip is the key. Guys, just for the sake of the video, I'm doing probably like a minute stretch, but in your own time, go for 90 seconds, go for 2 minutes, okay? Go give yourself time because the adaptation of the ligaments and sort of the less elastic tissues, it takes longer. Be patient with this, guys. Again, keep adjusting position, keep deepening the stretch. If you maybe play nice music, chill out. So now we're moving on to the external rotation lift-offs. Lean over to the side, using a block, maybe lying down fully if you're really restricted in the hip. Come up a little bit higher if you feel like you can still lift the foot off the ground. This, of course, could be done seated straight. Come up maybe a little bit higher on the block, but don't collapse through the shoulder. Remember, it's always deep breath in. So here we go. This is the little progression where you're trying to sit up even taller if you've got already good range of motion. Remembering the same clues, positioning 90 degrees in the right knee. Taking deep breath in, bracing, and then doing the lift off. So we want to see the thigh bone rotating, not the thigh bone lifting off the floor necessarily. And we're moving on to internal rotation. Internal rotation on the left hip. Again, dropping left sit bone towards the ground. It doesn't have to touch the floor. And again, if you're uncomfortable, your knee is uncomfortable, your medial knee is uncomfortable, slide a little cushion below the knee, so knee is higher. You can also point your toes, okay? It will then limit rotation at that knee. You may also need to lean far back, okay, if it's uncomfortable for the hip. Like I say, positioning is key. Gonna hold. And tune into sensations. Can you feel the back of the hip opening? Since we're doing internal rotation, means that external rotators of the hip will be lengthening. Okay. It's not going to feel probably like the most pleasant, relaxing stretch. It may feel odd, especially if you haven't done this before. And then again, at that block or that book, put it on top of your foot. We're going to go into isometrics. We're moving on. We're going to think of those two scales again. So push down with the foot, and then we'll push down with the knee. Ready? So take a deep breath in, and we push foot down, trying to externally rotate the hip against the resistance, which is created by the floor. Okay? Then relax, and we switch. So pushing knee down and try to lift the foot off the floor. It will not lift, okay? It's just all about contraction from the internal rotators of the hip. So you're trying to push the block up. All right, guys, around 2, deep breath in. We're pushing foot down, 10-15% of your max strength. And relax and switch, knee down, foot up, push that block to ceiling. And 3, 2, 1. And relax. Try to deepen the internal rotation. Maybe sit up taller. Maybe turn your upper body and pelvis a little bit more to the left, so we can deepen the internal rotation. If it's uncomfortable, lean back, rotate more to the right, get out of the end range of motion. Okay? Make sure it's sustainable. It's absolutely okay just to hold initially. Deep breath in. Ready? We're pressing down. Foot to the floor. Round 3, 2, 1. Relax, switch, knee down, foot up, push into the block. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Getting that contraction. All right, moving on to the lift-offs. So start turning towards your front leg again. Leaning forwards as much as needed, adjusting position of the knee. Maybe start very low, folding over the right leg so you can lift your left foot off the floor, keeping 90 degrees at the back knee. And this is the direction of the thigh bone towards the ground, or front of the thigh towards the ground. Pelvis, lower back, do not come along for the ride. Sit up taller if you can. Really stiffen through the trunk. Push your hands down and out. I like this position a lot, kind of using my hands to prop myself up. And again, so pelvis itself doesn't move, right? So acetabulum doesn't move, but the femur does go. So again, try not to swing your upper body. I can see sometimes how people like to lean forwards to lift the leg. This is not the point, okay? It's going to look like very small movement. Maybe sitting up taller. Look how I'm pushing my hand into the knee or into my foot to prop myself up. And I'm really trying to isolate that hip. And we, again, going for 20 lift-offs, give or take. More really about, guys, consistency and repetition, being in those positions more frequently, okay, so we can actually start creating more space between the acetabulum and the femur. Okay, if the bones are too close together, then when the generation of the cartilage is happening more quickly, because there's obviously more contact, more friction. And I like to hold that last one, count to 5. And then set your foot down. And done, guys. That's almost 20 minutes on the hip. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be talking more about the hip in the future videos. In the meantime, subscribe for more content. Ciao!